There's a formula for change that has a legendary reputation around the world. And when it's combined with the concept of the tipping point, it tells a compelling story. You see, everybody is changing everything every day. And if the definition of crazy is doing the same thing over and over again, expecting different results, well, the good news is our world is no longer crazy. And if we're not crazy, then what are we? What's going on with all this, quote, sanity that we're experiencing? And how can we thrive in an ever-changing landscape? You see, crazy is less about the changing world, and it's really more about our process, how we go about changing. If we keep using old ways to transform and change to address the most intractable of problems, and if we keep using the same process expecting different results, that is the definition of crazy. And the change formula and a tipping point can help us more confidently and more competently create conditions for real transformation in an accelerated and an efficient manner. So let's begin by going over the formula. D times V times S must be greater than R in order to create real transformation, individually and collectively. The S was recently added to address the nature of change, the complex nature of change in our world. Notice in the formula that it's multiplicative, D times V times F times S. If there's a zero in any one of these, it cancels it out. You need to have all of these variables in place. Let's walk through the formula together. D equals dissatisfaction. A person must be dissatisfied with their current state. And when they are conscious or aware of that dissatisfaction, it creates conditions for hope. And see, satisfaction is not the same as happiness. They are two different concepts. You can be satisfied with your level of happiness, and you can be dissatisfied with your level of happiness. You can be in conditions where you're pretty darn happy, but heck, you're just not satisfied with where things are, and you have a desire for change, even a sense of urgency for change, even though you're happy. And some people are dissatisfied and completely unhappy. And then you all know that there are some people that are satisfied with their unhappiness. I mean, there are people that are completely satisfied being miserable. And if you turn that frown upside down, the thumb is still going down. So you take that dissatisfaction, that desire for change, and combine it with an ennobling vision of what you yearn to become. That creates inspiration. And an inspiration can be seen in the following research study. A large group of accountants were taken and split in half. One group was put in one room, the other group was put in the other room. 150 in one room, 150 in the other room. They were given the same issue to address. On one side, they were asked to solve a problem. And on the other side, they were asked to design a preferred future. And what they found was that those that were solving a problem had despair. There was blame, pointing fingers, short-term Band-Aid solutions, and a serious drain of human energy. When walking into the other room, there was hope. There was ownership of the problem and ownership of the solution, and long-term solutions that were deep and actually really got at the root causes. There was enthusiasm and heightened energy. So you combine that with F, first steps. Concrete actions to take in the short term that can lead to a real commitment. These actions need to be taken now. So they have to be starting when people get back to work, back to working together on it, next week, the next day. For the next 3 months, there needs to be clear, concrete actions for people to be taking together. And combine that with having in place the necessary support and structures to encourage follow-through on those actions addressing that vision and that dissatisfaction. That support creates conditions for perseverance. And it really helps to ensure that the success trajectory continues forward and that there is that long-term follow-through. Now, the product of DVFS has to be greater than the resistance in order for a transformative shift to occur towards action. And so resistance is fear. And resistance is information. And it's not something to be fought with, it's something to be understood, to be listened to, and to be respected, and even honored. You see, fear is real for everybody. And sometimes where a person sits, that fear that they know is different than the fear of the unknown. Take the example of an engineer on a burning platform on an oil rig. And that engineer jumps and lands in the water and is rescued. And a reporter that was watching it from a helicopter goes up, puts a microphone in the engineer's face and says, well, so tell me, why did you jump? I mean, you could kill yourself just jumping, and there's sharks, it's cold. And he said, it got too hot. See, there's a level of dissatisfaction, a vision of wanting to get home safely with loved ones. First steps, jumping, seeing the water, landing properly. And so supporting mechanisms, people there to rescue him upon landing. Those things in place created conditions that were greater than the resistance in order to take a leap from the fear of what you know into the fear of what you don't know. So DVFS must be greater than R in order to create real transformation, a real change, in which the fear of jumping is less than the fear of staying on that platform or staying with the status quo. And now you take it and look at these large intractable problems where you're engaging multiple stakeholders and groups of people that have no real required reason to have to work together. They're all over the place, but they care about the same problem, and you're working to bring all these people together, and they all have their own DVFS experience. They need to have their own DVFS experience, and it needs to be connected to create a collective DVFS in order to create real transformation on a large scale. And Malcolm Gladwell talks about the tipping point, and this is how we could take DVFS to this large scale and tractable problem-solving arena. The tipping point is that magic moment when an idea, trend, or social behavior crosses a threshold and tips and spreads like wildfire. And Harold Jarsch says, how can those of us not in senior roles influence those who are to embrace the idea that we are in a networked era and to act to create post-hierarchical organizations? You see, you got all these different groups, and you got these people that bring different time and talent and treasure to the problem, and these groups that can bring different time, talent, and treasure. And you got all of the capital that's going on, and we're in this meta structure where it's not within one organization, it's multiple organizations, and it's communities, and they're all having to work together when they're not required. There's not a job responsibility that says all of you, and we can hold you accountable to working together. How do you create conditions where everybody says, yes, we are going to work together over the long term to work on this issue? And trust becomes a critical factor in building that collective change. And so where it begins is in the invitation. You create a pitch. You can invite people. At the core of it is really the invitation. It's better to go slow in the right direction than to go fast in the wrong direction. Engaging people, you sometimes have to go slow to go fast. You can't just take off. You have to find ways to invite people into and to be a part of that collective DVFS and create experiences where everybody connects their common dissatisfactions, connecting themselves into a common vision, their individual vision, their group vision, the whole vision. A first steps that connects all of them. And then supporting mechanisms in place to help all work together as they move towards solving and addressing the critical issues by going after that ennobling vision that they yearn to see together. So it's 3 levels of engagement is one way to think about how to engage. And as I mentioned, you have to go slow to go fast. So it's engagement at each level requires engaging DVFS at all these levels. And one level is top leadership and leaders of various organizations and the leaders in the organization itself. And these leaders have to connect around their DVFS greater than R. And then you've got the mid-level group. You got the steering teams and the change teams, and you got these mid-level managers that all have to connect around this DVFS greater than R. Well, you're not done, because there's a whole group of people, the community, the whole organizations, the people on the front line dealing with these intractable issues on a day-to-day basis in the trenches. They have to have their own DVFS connected with mid-level leadership, and top leadership in order to create conditions for a tipping point in which the pace of change accelerates. And so, in closing, it really boils down to this. If you want to go fast, go alone. If you want to go far, go together.